I think all of us would say unequivocally, absolutely yes. That's where Jesus would be, I believe, if he was here today, ministering. You know, I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again. The body of Christ is the only army I know of that consistently shoots its own wounded. And then we bury them before they die. And it ought not to be that way. But the truth is it's incumbent on all of us, and the challenge is how do you love the person and yet still address the behavior. And I think we have to find ways to affirm the person. And I think a beautiful example of that is when the woman was caught in the act of adultery, and you know, the men wanted and started reading her the law, the church rule. She should be stoned. And Jesus, wise as he was, had some things, and he said, well, basically, the one who's like had the perfect life, why don't you throw the first one? And so they all dissipate, and it's left him with this woman, probably with her head covered on the ground, waiting for the first stone to hit. And do you remember what Jesus said to her? When I asked that question, a lot of people say, go and sin no more, which he said, but it's not the first thing. He said, neither do I condemn you. Notice he didn't say, neither do I condemn your behavior. He said, I'm not here to condemn you. I'm for you. I love you. I'm going to die for you. Now hold that thought for a minute. Come over here. Don't do that anymore. And do you see how he separated person from performance and found a way to affirm her value and worth as someone created in his image, and yet he also addressed the behavior? And we need wisdom and discernment on how to do that.
Hold that, because I want to make sure we get enough of the audience questions.
Okay.
We only have a few minutes left.
All right.
So, please.
I just wanted to affirm everything that's being said. I've been a children's pastor for about 14 years, and we have started to where we, as far as advocating with the church, we have started programs in our church where we educate parents as young as 3rd and 4th grade on all of these things that you're talking about to protect them from the social media. And, you know, so many kids, even in 4th grade, have smartphones and iTouches that can access the internet and things like that. And it's really important that we get this information out there, that we are on a preventative track as well to prevent these major issues in our churches. And I know that it has, just in my parenting classes that I teach all the time, parents do a 180. They take away cell phones. They start monitoring the music. They start doing all of these kinds of things. And we just really need to be proactive with our families in our churches in trying to overturn these major, major issues. It's extremely important.
Donna, why don't you talk for a minute about the teaching series? Because you
Right.
something that is designed to help parents with things like this.
Yes. I think I mentioned in the introduction that we created the Internet Safety 101 curriculum for adults just for that purpose, and it's designed to actually educate the adult on issues of pornography, predation, all the social media and everything else, and then to equip them with what they need to know to prevent this, because all these issues are preventable. And so I just applaud you, and we're going to have these available for you tomorrow after my teaching. And I want to add, if I can, one thing, because real quickly on the story of the woman brought to Jesus caught in the act of adultery. When I was praying about, God, how can the culture change? Where can we get a paradigm shift? And he said, it's got to start with the church, with 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and turn from what their wicked ways. And so the verse that he gave me after that was this. And that is, when you look at that story, which was a real story, it wasn't a parable, there are 4 different kinds of people in that story. The woman represents the sexually broken. The people that were going to cast the first stone, the self-righteous, the condemners, usually inside the church, oftentimes inside the church. Then, of course, you have Jesus, represented. There's a fourth group. Who's the fourth group? The onlookers, the apathetic, the ones that don't think that they're immune or that it doesn't apply to them, but they're not doing anything. All right? And then when I say, well, who needs to repent? Back to 2 Chronicles 7:14. Any of those three groups. The sexually broken, the condemners, and the apathetic. So that we have the heart of Jesus when it comes to those who are broken, so that they can be healed and they can be set free. And then you go to the end of 2 Chronicles 7:14. Then if we do this, if we follow this verse, this is a promise, then he says he will heal us, he'll forgive us, and then what's he going to do? Heal our land. If we don't, it's got to start with us. And that's where the turn is going to happen. I sincerely believe that. And so that's what I'm going to leave you with as I end.
Couple more questions?
I just wanted to confirm everything that our panel is talking about. I recently retired from public school system. I was with the public schools for 23 years, a nearby school system. And I was a school building administrator. And I have to tell you that on a regular basis, I could say almost daily basis, we deal with cyber sex, cyberbullying. We deal with kids in the bathroom, girls giving out oral sex in the bathroom to lines of boys, children skipping school to go to whoever's house is empty without a parent home to watch pornography and act it out, boys and girls together. And this is something that teachers and school building administrators, not only in my school system, deal with. It's in the other schools throughout the county and the state, rather, and the schools across the nation. Because when you go to national conferences, regional conferences, it's brought up. And the brain research is out there. Educators are aware of it. This is very, very real. But public school system people, there are many of us are Christian in there. And I'm going to tell you that the government, the governing powers that be, want to tie people's hands. And it's very sad. Behind closed doors, administrators and teams are rolling their eyes and saying, this is disgusting, what are we supposed to do with it? Bisexuality is very big among our teams. That is the new thing. They're dancing to the tune of that. It's very, very real. But we are called to be lights and hiding our lights under a bushel or being apathetic, being the onlookers, and not saying or doing anything. I mean, pray. Sincerely pray wherever you are planted to know what it is that God has called you to do, to speak out, to plant seeds, to bring things to light that are wrong, and save our youth. Save our youth.
Thank you. Have another question or comment?
Comment, I totally agree with that, and I totally agree that the church needs to step up. I'm going to switch topics here just for a minute, and this is for you, Matt. We've been taking kids in for 3.5 years now, and in that 3.5 years, we've had 5 different counties. We're from Ohio, Central Ohio. Approach us, social workers, some parole officers. Most of these people have been Christians, wanting to know how they can get their kids into our program and how we can skirt around the fact that we're Christians. What can we do legally? Is there anything we can do to get these kids that are in these programs that aren't working to come to our type of facilities?
You're talking about there's a parole officer, and the parole officer wants to get that boy or girl into your program?
Yes, apparently they have, some of the different counties have programs set up where they have early outs for kids, but they're not allowed to send them to a Christian facility because of church and state, you know. And is there anything that we can do? Because what they're asking us to do is skirt around the fact, you know, tell people, well, no, you know, they don't have to read the Bible or go to church or that kind of thing. And we can't do that because that's our program. But yet they're coming to us and wanting to know how to get these kids into our type of program.
That's a complicated question to answer. It's unfortunate, but you're not the only one, obviously, that is dealing with this. It's all over the place, and it's because of this ACLU kind of thing, litigation over whether it's church and state situation. But you can start on the local level where you are and perhaps start talking to your local head of the probation, head, you know, some of the judges that may ultimately end up sentencing people to probation and have certain criterias. I think it may take a while, but I think that's one way to start working on it. If there's some rule in your county, maybe some rule that they're following that says you can't put them in the Christian school or Christian environment, religious environment, then we can work on that. You may ask them, do they have any written policies, for example, that they follow, that they are aware of, that prohibits them from placing them into religiously affiliated faith-based programs. If that's the case, we can work on trying to change it. Otherwise, you have to try to change people's minds and approach them one by one. Approach the probation officers, approach the probation heads, approach some of the judges. If you know some judges that are Christian, for example, I'm sure that there should be somebody there. Approach them if they're juvenile judges. Bring them over to the facility, give them an idea of what it looks like, and maybe try to say, maybe one of the kids that comes up, send them our way. That judge can maybe then talk to some other judges and try to help them out that way. And then also with your social work, also with your social workers and maybe somebody who's the head of your region, and find out if there's a policy there that they're operating on that prohibits you, and we can try to change it. If there's not, try to do the same thing there, and I start that way. You can always call us at Liberty Counsel to help you. It's to help you try to answer some of those specifics and guide you through. Our phone number is 800-671-1776. It's 800-671-1776, and it's lc.org. And I see Mia has the timeout sign up there.